So this is the webinar today. We're going to actually get to know our panelists very, very shortly. I'm excited to introduce Mike Redigan from the Business of Security as the Executive Director, a subject matter expert. If I had his entire bio, we would not have time for any webinar time. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really helpful in helping organizations of all sizes quantify cyber risks in financial terms and really make sense for it on a business level. Experience also working with Cisco and with ABB. Mike, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you as the moderator of today's event. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Mike to help facilitate today's webinar.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Great to be with you all today. I do like to say that senior leadership in an organization doesn't care about cybersecurity. They care about cyber risk, and they want to know how much they have and what they can do about it. And that will be one of our themes today is, how do we assess the risk effectively and communicate it to senior leadership? We also want to talk about what are the reasonable steps to take, given we all have limited resources. And certainly we want to gain lessons learned from the experiences of that will be shared with us by Philippe. But first, we really would like to get to know our audience. And we have a little way to facilitate that here today. We are going to ask you to interact with us. And of course, throughout the session here, encourage you to put your questions in. This event is for you. We want you to benefit as much as possible from your investment of time today. So as your questions fit with the theme of our discussion, we would love to field your questions throughout the panel discussion. So let's see how this works. We want to see your opinions on a few things here. What are the biggest challenges? So is that our first question? What are the biggest challenges facing cybersecurity today? Or I might say, I see. This is, what do you call these again? Stephanie put this together.
Word clouds.
It's a word.
Word cloud.
A word cloud. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about this? And Stephanie, if you had your keys on the hands on the keyboard right now, what would you be putting in there? What's your biggest challenge?
Fishing. Fishing and spearing and whaling and all of those human components.
That's right. Good. Oh, we had to have AI on here for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Obsolete systems is a very good one as well.
Oh, we call those soft targets, don't we, Rob? Hey, sometimes, Rob, obsolete systems are hard to penetrate because they don't have the newest, the latest operating systems, right?
Weak password.
Security through obsolescence, but, have a read on Windows XP exploits.
That's right.
And the commercially available tools to leverage them.
I think ransomware was vertical there. Maybe that emphasized that. Yeah, global tension.
Gender changes. Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Weak passwords.
Shadow
IT.
Whoa. This is good stuff. I'm sure we're capturing this.
Yep.
Yeah, people. So, help me understand OT vendor changes. Rob, what is that?
I'm curious about it as well. I think from my perspective at ABB, if I put a customer concern hat on, ABB comes to the customer, talks about control system security in a slightly different way than Siemens, in a slightly different way than Honeywell. If you multiple vendor systems, multiple vintage, et cetera, that's a tough challenge to get out of at scale. At least that's
what as you described that. What came to my mind was software updates, coming in for those OT vendor updates, maybe. Yeah. All right. This was excellent. Let's jump to the next.
I get that one. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Next question. Oh, this is very interesting. Okay. Where's cybersecurity on your corporate risk register? Matter of fact, how does it stack rank against the other risk issues that leadership needs to address in order to keep safe, reliable, and we'll call it profitable operations? Of course, we see in these surveys that come out from Deloitte or PwC and this is broadly across all industries, that cyber risk is, a top boardroom issue, top 5. But when you measure it against the spend of the organization's, we'll call it risk management budget, sometimes doesn't seem to really stack up. So I would say the litmus test here, if it's high, you would be getting your budget that you want. So thinking in that terms, I don't know, Felipe, this would be one question I was going to save for you later, but I'm going to ask you now.
Well, I have put my votes on the high option, but because there isn't a higher option, because I think our company was on the high option before the incident that we had on almost 3 years ago. But since then, I believe we are on a higher rank.
Up for the top 5 to the top, very top. Okay. Yes. Well, that's good to know that even prior to the incident, it was considered.
Yes.
Well, this is.
I will talk about that later a bit, but we also had some regulation about that.
Oh, okay. To me, this is actually a little surprising. I would have thought we would have seen more mediums, lows, just because of the historical issues that cause disruption to services would be more mechanical operational issues, I would guess. Let's move on. I think we have a third question. Oh, okay. Does your organization have a cybersecurity strategy or roadmap? And this would, the caveat would be here, we should put a funded cybersecurity strategy or roadmap. How about that, Stephanie? Is yours? Yeah. At what point was yours funded in your evolution?
Interestingly, when I came into this position in July of 2022, they had already had a funded, I'm going to say map. I won't even call it a roadmap, but they had an idea of what they wanted to do, which was excellent. And we've breaked it up quite a bit now. So we have both a strategy and a roadmap. So, Halifax Water is, we have it's quite high on our risk register, cybersecurity.
Yeah, this is a formal exercise to achieve this and then execute against it. This is probably another question is.
Auditors help, Mike. If you get audited, it helps a lot.
Oh, very good. Yeah. No, okay. This is, now if we could actually see the demographics of our audience, who is in a larger utility versus a smaller utility, it's reasonable to expect that the smaller utilities wouldn't necessarily have a roadmap, possibly a strategy, but this is great. Well, hey, thank you for participating in your audience. Well, now you can see what kind of company you're keeping. For all the effort that's gone into advising the water wastewater industry as to the risk issues and the frameworks and such, I think it's been a good 10 years in the United States anyway. Have we put out, here's what you should do and should be endeavoring to do. We have another question. I'm sorry, didn't see that one. There we go. And to Stephanie's point, this really then helps keep you on track and chart your progress.
And again, the difference between a formal audit from, for us, it's a municipal auditor general versus the audits that we do internally or a third party that we get to come in and audit us. So there's multiple facets of that audit piece.
And to your point, you think it's really an important aspect of keeping your program on track and funded. Yeah. Excellent.
Helps you build a strategy.
Well, you're getting to know us a little bit through our interactions, but I'd like to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves, a little bit about your operation, your organization, your maturity maybe, and let's make a comment about a couple recent high-profile incidents that have taken place in the United States. I assume these might be reverberating across the globe, but American Water Works, which is the largest water utility in the United States, and it's not limited only to New Jersey where they're headquartered. They manage about 500 different water utilities, is currently working through a cyber incident. And you would think that the largest water utility in the U.S. would have a pretty significant cybersecurity budget. And that actually followed an alert that came out from, at least in the United States, our Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, we call it CISA. In the U.S. has several warnings in the month of September that had called out water, wastewater utilities as a potential target. But so my question, my long-winded intro is, please introduce yourself and tell us how these highly publicized incidents have influenced your organization in the last 30 days. And, since we have our sponsor who is with us, Rob, I'm going to start with you because even these would have an impact on the OEMs. So, Rob?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Rob Putman, ABB. I work in our process automation business area. My role is Global Manager of Cybersecurity Products and Services. To your point, this is just the recent events are just another reminder that cybersecurity matters. You've got to think it through. You've got to identify risk. You've got to put a program and governance model together so that you can self-validate, for want of a better term. Am I actually doing what I said I should be doing? My question is less that there was a breach and more how well prepared are they? I don't know what kind of budget they had, the maturity of their program, et cetera. But breaches are going to happen. It's how you respond and recover, I think, is as interesting. So that's how we're thinking about it. I don't want to get into the commercial side of ABB too much, but obviously because of my role and many like me throughout ABB, we take the topic very seriously as an OEM.
Very good. Stephanie, please take the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephanie LeBlanc from Halifax Water. My role here is the Senior Manager of Information and Technology Services, a very long title to say that I take care of IT, OT, and the cyber program falls under my purview. And it has been very interesting unifying the IT and OT team here, but very worthwhile and fruitful. These things that are happening in the news, what often will happen here at Halifax Water is the board and executive will ask us, okay, so we have the strategy and plan. How does this impact us? Do we have pieces in place? Can we recover? To Robert's point, which is respond and recover, which people are kind of moving to the right on, and kind of shifting us into where our cybersecurity programs just starting to get a little bit more mature into what we're calling the 16 benchmarks that we want to be able to let our board know what are we doing and how are we doing in each of the categories, taking all 16 measures into the 5 buckets of NIST, and letting them know like how we're doing and what we, how we think we're progressing. But the big thing to Robert's point, it's a matter of when, it's not if. So, we are doing all that we can to remain safe, but we know that it will happen, and how quickly can we recover from it? Thank you, Mike.
I am going to, before I introduce Felipe, I would like to address a question that came up that's along these lines, Stephanie, which is, Daniel says, as an expert in ICS-OT cybersecurity, he would say that an ICS/OT directed ransomware is not likely to happen, meaning a malware that's designed to exploit a vulnerability within an OT operating system and encrypt the data associated with the operational technology. What do you think is this question? Do you have an opinion? And feel free to weigh in.
I think there's 2 pieces there. One is not so much for Halifax Water, but what I have heard in the communities, there are some OT systems that are directly connected to the internet. If anybody wants to take a dark web dive there, you can find some of that stuff. And that's not, that wouldn't be best practice for Halifax Water. So I do agree with that question. If, your networks are air gapped or they're, almost completely separated, I won't say completely separated. Folks, the only other part of that is, can someone get on your corporate network and jump across to OT? If you're completely air gapped, obviously that's not going to be a problem. But if you're not, if you're allowing some remote capability, there's every possibility. And so our team, for lack of better terms, what we call it is the IT-OT kill switch. And it is a literal button that they want to call the easy button, that as soon as something happens, nobody's connected to OT anymore. And so I think that, yes, although it's low, it depends on how much flexibility you're giving to your people, depending on your facilities. We have almost 400 facilities here at Halifax Water. It's not possible to be in all of them all of the time.
Very good. And I think this question does come from what we've seen historically so far. The ransomware is the IT side, which then maybe the kill switch is initiated out of pure caution. Philippe,
Hi.
On to you. Please take a moment to introduce yourself. Looking forward to hearing more from you today as well.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Philippe Costa, and I am the IT coordinator, the IT manager of Águas in Rio do Porto from Portugal. I'm also responsible for the security, the information security of the company. Well, I'm here today to share with all of us the experience that we had with an incident almost 2 years ago, and what have we done after that incident. But just a quick recap about the water incident that you had in the United States, because here in Europe, we didn't have that news on the mainstream news. Of course, we are a water utility. We are aware of that happen, but it's not a mainstream happening. I don't know if that happens in the United States. If that level of awareness is that high, it's on the news everywhere. But here it doesn't happen like that. But in fact, we had last week ransomware attack on the national identity management, and it was a side note news. It's not even a big news, and there are a lot of national identity services stopped at the moment.
Does your government agencies that oversee your critical infrastructure offer frequent alerts and as water, wastewater on getting more notice?
Yes. We have a national. In fact, we have two national institutions that are aware of what we are doing related to cybersecurity. One more directed to the cyber, the IT, the networking, and another one more related to the data, to the personal data, the GDPR.
Oh yeah.
So there are two different agencies that take care of those two different subjects.
And I think GDPR is maybe more relevant given that you've got customer data. So
yes.
At least the more impactful. And we will get to your regulatory concerns here soon. Before we jump into the timeline of the incidents, I want to cover a topic that's we highlight in our webinar title, which we call out the term material. And in the United States, the term material is being employed by the Security and Exchange Commission, which is overseeing public companies, to classify a certain level of negative financial and reputational impact that would need to be disclosed to investors. And cyber risk now is being called out as one of those. So let's just take a few minutes to discuss with the panel here the language cybersecurity leaders use when communicating cyber risk to senior management, or should be using. I'll toss this over to you, Stephanie, first. So what is the language of the business that you're using that you found effective when you're communicating cyber risk with your leadership?
So there's a few ways that we're kind of bringing that forward to the board and to our executive. One is we have an enterprise risk management program here at Halifax Water. And so we're kind of dovetailing our cybersecurity program in with that because folks are used to using that language of likelihood and impact. Look at, how big an event is in terms of finance or regulatory, reputational concerns or, staff and customers or people kind of sector and what that means across that likelihood and impact. And so with that, we can bring forward what we feel is the cyber risk and, where we feel that fits from, our scale is 1 to 25, 25 being high, and then what we're going to do for mitigation plans. So, if we're using that business language with them instead of a IT techie kind of language, that goes a long way. Another thing is that we do a regular, I should say we, I guess it's me, do a regular update to the board every month. We also have the Enterprise Risk Management Subcommittee that we do a presentation to as well. But it's very much about, and I'll go back to the auditing that we talked about. We did have a municipal audit, a bunch of recommendations came out of it. We had done a third-party audit as well, that about 100 recommendations came out of it. So we have about 147 recommendations that we're working through, prioritized, all those things. And so we started just working with them on that language of what are the 147 recommendations that we're doing? What are we doing about them? How are we going about it? That whole idea of a roadmap and plan. We give them 18 months and tell them each thing that we're going to be working on and then showing progress against them. So we're using more business tactic than we are the language of cyber technology to help them understand what's happening.
And each step of the way, you're essentially having to show what's the return on budget dollars spent in some fashion, whether it's dollars or risk reduction.
Yes. Yep. So we're constantly reassessing that and showing them how we've brought that level down.
Philippe, just a question along these lines, which is, since you are responsible for cybersecurity at the organization, what have you found most effective to secure the budget that you desire each year? I spring this question on Philippe without prepping him for it.
It's okay. Well, of course, we all have a limited budget, of course. But inside of that limited budget, we by my department can distribute the budget for initiatives. And if we want to put some more money on the cybersecurity, we will have to put less in infrastructure, for example. And I think, I will say almost from 5 years ago, about 30% of our budget goes to cybersecurity initiatives. And I never heard a no from our administration board on any cybersecurity initiative. Well, we are lucky. We have a very technical administration board, and they really understand the business and the risks and the cyber risks. So the communication that we have to get that yes to the initiatives, it's not techy, Stephanie was saying, but it's very easy.
When we get to a later point in this discussion, I would like to know where the audience can get their biggest bang for the buck, right? And where maybe some of the high impact initiatives or controls, where they could start. So we'll table that, but keep that in mind. We want to address that. But so we're gonna dive into the details of the incident that Philippe is going to share with us. And kudos to your organization being willing to talk about this, and to share your experience. A lot of organizations would rather not do that. So, Philippe, you were intimately involved in the incident response and recovery efforts. Can you just give us a little more background, your operation and what happened, and then we can go into the first slide.
Okay, I will try to put this in 5 minutes, and then if there are some answers, I will explain in detail. Well, Shana, can you please put, because here we were already talking that there's not a matter of if, but it's the when. We had already had that when, at least the first one. We'll never know when it will happen again, but it happened. And it was a fine Monday morning. Monday morning's fine, but people started arriving at the company, and they found a completely different company. There wasn't internet, there wasn't applications, no connection to SCADA, no cell phones. They couldn't use the cars because, we have all those fancy car dispensers that you put a code and it works with the internet. We had nothing to work related to technology. So it was a very different Monday. So, Shana, perhaps next slide. What really happened on the previous Sunday around 9 p.m. I received a call from the operations management team that some operations software wasn't working as they should, and they asked for my help. So A quick review. I was still at home and using some VPN, and a quick review showed me some serious red flags that it could be happening, a ransomware attack. So I called my team, to people that they immediately go to the company, and on site we made a quick survey, and around 10:30 p.m. we already was sure that we were attacked by ransomware. I think there's another bullet showing. Yeah. So at 11 p.m. we decided to disconnect from the world, and this is a dramatic decision, and sometimes it's a very difficult decision. If you have to call someone, if you have to decide if you can do it or not, sometimes it can take a lot of times. But we did it at this time of the night. So the next slide. Immediately, that was a crazy night, because we started to follow our incident response plan. We did have one, but it was a very fresh one. In fact, that plan was finished like 2 months earlier. We didn't have put in practice. We didn't have no tabletop exercises or anything. So we were trying to recap, but in the heat of the moment, I will say that it's not that easy to try to keep calm and follow the script. But looking now, I think it was very close to what we were planning to do.
Yeah, it was absolutely. Let me interrupt you right there. This very important point you just brought up, which is, fortunately, you actually had crafted an incident response plan, and it was written and documented, correct? And I would like to, and then certainly you went through a huge stress test that determined if that plan was, has a database, but at least you had the advantage of it. Stephanie, you haven't had this ultimate stress test for your organization. What would be your feelings about your incident response plan? How could it survive essentially what Philippe is just describing here?
So we are lucky that it hasn't been us yet. So what we do is we actually have monthly tabletop, what we call tabletop incident response exercises. The technical team, we were all coming together at the beginning, but now we've kind of branched out now that we've done about 8 or 10 of them, and they're very eye-opening. So I suggest anybody do it, and just start with Philippe's slides. You come in Monday, none of this. This is not. It is very interesting. You think you know what you'll do, and you have a plan written, but actually when you exercise it, you realize, oh, wait a minute, no, I needed to do this instead, or I need this decision done. So that's what we find. So in our tabletops, one of our very first ones was what I mentioned earlier about this ITOT kind of kill switch. And that was the very first thing, was who has the authority to shut it down? Exactly. And we're like, oh, I don't know. Maybe the operator of the plant. And we ended up having to bring all these decisions, probably about 7 to 10 of them, to the executive to say, can the cybersecurity team have the authority to make these decisions? Now, would we call? Absolutely. But again, if it happens Monday morning, that's great. Most attacks happen Friday at 3 p.m. or sometime that they stay in your system, right? So, you've got to know what those answers are. What do you do if you can't get somebody? Because our team's always like, well, we'll just call, our manager. What if he's not available? Well, we'll just call Stephanie. Well, what if Stephanie's gone too? So who's making the decision, and who are the laterals, not just the laterals when people aren't available? It's very eye-opening. And just one kind of thing that came out of that is we use the incident command system here for other natural disasters. And we've kind of dovetailed, again, our cyber program into what the organization already knows. And so we're adopting that ourselves. So we're getting all trained in being incident commanders and different things. And it's very enlightening for us, because we're coming from the technical side, and now we're saying, okay, so when do the lawyers get involved? When does their insurance provider get involved? When do we get our communications team involved? All of those types of things. What forms need to be filled out? What, right? And so now we've kind of broken this one tabletop into 3, and that the technical team has their playbook. This happened, pull it off the shelf, start going and doing your logs. And the rest of us are on another team saying, okay, here's the forms we need to fill out. Here's who we need to contact. We need to let the province know. We need to let other people know. And then we're doing a third level which is with our executive board, just on a very high level. Hey, this happened. We need a decision. One of our decisions that we're bringing is, I've got 50 laptops. Other than the IT and OT teams, who gets them? Right? 150 people. Who gets them first? Well, that's a bit of an interesting conversation, because people will place importance on that, right? What applications come up first? So that's all part of your restoration plan too. But it's interesting as you're doing these exercises. What will you do technically? What will you do in terms of forms and filling it out, and insurance and lawyers and all of those things? And then what's the executive board? What's everybody's role in this? Acting for us, not for Philippe.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a marketable product there. You've refined your incident response plan so well. It's something that I'm sure the audience would love to get their hands on.
Well, and one thing I would say is there's a little game called Backdoors and Breaches, and that's been very interesting. It's kind of a play on Dungeons and Dragons with dice and stuff, but it's very interesting because it can throw wrenches in that you weren't expecting. And what do you do? Because that's what's really going to happen.
And impressed that you do something monthly. That seems like an aggressive schedule. It takes time out of people's day. How do you get sponsorship for that?
So where we kind of landed was, again, taking it back to business language. So if I do this once a year, no one remembers. Right. If I do it twice a year, tangentially remember. We're not going to have the pleasure of it being something, very slow to do. Every minute, second counts, right? It's infiltrating your systems at an alarming rate as soon as they get in. And so if you can put the math around that, which that's what I've done, is you put the math around that, every minute is costing you. And so if I take 2-3 hours out for a team of 10, yep, that's a big dollar value, but it's millions on the other side, right? If I don't train them properly. So that's kind of, that's our model.
But an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? Philippe, going back to your top bullet point, we decided to disconnect from the world. I really am curious whose final decision was to pull the plug.
Yeah, it was mine. And looking at the picture that is on the presentation, well, soon, not at 11 o'clock in the evening, but later, and this will happen, you will have a small IT room where usually there are 4 people working, full of C-level, administration level, working with technical guys, taking decisions. But as you were saying, at 3 a.m., you don't have all of those people working with you, making decisions, saying who's going to have the 50 laptops or whose application is going to be up first. This will come up later. But at 3 a.m., somebody has to know who can plug the internet cable. It's true. And Stephanie was already covering almost the pains that we felt on a real scenario. So I guess the tabletop is an excellent exercise. But I'm just curious, Stephanie, your tabletop exercises cover only IT teams or all the company teams?
No, it covers IT and OT. That would be both my teams. And we don't. So the exercises for hurricanes or all of that stuff, that's in another level above me plus the province. They do their own exercises. So I'm just running them from a technology, and we're running them from cyber. But from my point of view, if something should go out, we'd lose a generator in half of we can use the same system.
Well, I was asking that because the feeling I had during the incident is that the IT people will go crazy during a couple of weeks, having a lot of things to do. And the first moments, the rest of the company is just looking around, trying to find something that can do, because all the systems are stopped and they are expecting a plan B from the IT people. And my advice is to have a plan B, not depending on the IT.
Yeah, so we have a whole other program called Business Continuity Program. It's part of the
Yes, exactly.
or Enterprise Risk Framework. But yeah, all the downtime procedures, because that's quite scary to the business when you say, okay, you're blind. What are we doing? You can't see your facility. It's like, oh, we got to send people out. We got to do this. So it is getting them engaged and writing up those business continuity plans. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, Mike, should I go back to the bullets?
Yeah, let's continue the story. It's evolving.
Well, we are still on the same in the same night, Sunday night. Still three lonely IT people working at the office trying to recover a big ransomware incident. So, but we called for help. We called for our IT teams that we subcontract. We started the legal compromises that we have to comply, notify all the authorities. We have a couple of hours to do that. And start shutting down everything. We started our plan trying to segmentate the network, the buildings, the floors. We started looking at backups to see if they were compromised, and at the time we were looking at the data, and all the backups they looked okay. So early in that morning, it was already Monday at 2 a.m. we started restoring a domain controller just to have access to all the systems to see what was the damage. Well, and of course we have disabled all the service and user accounts, and this is very painful. And I will explain later about that. Can you see the? Okay, so what really happened? Because we were honestly we were ready to start recovering all the system. It was 3 a.m. We had a couple of hours left to the company open, so let's start recovering. But no, we can't. We must do exactly what happened, and this is very dramatic because even if you have a plan, even if you have all the backups in order. If you don't know what really happens, you can be restoring some restore points that are already compromised, and a couple of weeks later you'll be again facing a ransomware.
Right.
So our forensics they have made the analysis, and this happened on the same weekend. So during the Saturday and during the Sunday. The Lockbit team, the international ransomware group, they gathered to enter on our firewall using a flaw. It was a misconfiguration of the firewall, and they managed to get in using a user account that had no privileges. But then they could escalate during the whole Saturday and Sunday, and when they get in, they started encrypting everything, and that led us to the alert that we have. And most of the incident it's this. Then it's the recovery plan that I could explain a little. I don't know if you want to hear about it now.
But I may be jumping ahead, but did Lockbit give you a method of contacting them, and did you consider doing that?
Let me explain you the small images that you see on the left. One of them is actual hall, the entrance hall of the company, and the only piece of technology that we had working is that TV connected to a small USB computer that was putting the information what systems are going to be recovered first, kind of a status like, okay, this is going to be okay in a week, this is going to be okay in 2 weeks. So to manage expectations, because there will be a lot of stress on the IT team to get their systems first. And the other image is a lot of paper that Lockbit, they managed to put the printers printing their ransomware.
Okay.
So until the printer was out of paper, you can see there's some ransomware notes, physical one.
Jeez. Okay. They planned ahead to make sure you had a way to read about their claims or demands.
Yes. Well, we didn't engage with the Lockbit team. We didn't. Well, I guess this is a decision that is very hard to do, and each scenario should be different. But because we had all the data that we needed, and because we didn't lost any data, because we used the Friday night backups, and we are on Monday morning scenario. So we lost the data of a weekend, which typically is almost closed the company. So we didn't engage in any kind of contacts. We received a couple of emails. We received a couple of emails through the available emails that we have, but we ignored, and of course we didn't pay any ransomware. But I don't know, and I'm not judging, and each company should do their path and their decisions.
Like, just to give you a heads up, we have about a little less than 10 minutes left to go, and it's going to be a big interest to the audience to know, again, we're talking IT systems right now, and let's talk also at some point here about OT. That any time was there any disruption of service, water distribution, sewer treatment, etc. How did the OT side of the house get affected by this?
Well, it wasn't directly.
Okay.
But usually we are used to look at the dashboards, to look at the information that comes out from the SCADA systems, and because we didn't have any internet connection to the outside world or to whatever, the outside of the building, we couldn't see anything. So the operation still continued without any kind of disruption, but it was mainly on place. You cannot do it remotely. You had to go to there. You have to put people watching at the sensors. You have to put people opening the valves that you have to do. You can work. Of course, this water distribution business, it has centuries of history. It doesn't need to rely on computers, but it still works. But it will be very painful to continue the operation.
Yeah, what was the duration of manual operations?
Well, I was looking at the incident dates preparing to this presentation, and we are talking about the Monday morning, and the first time we connected again to the internet was only on Wednesday, and just to see if we can connect to the email and to have the telephones to connect with our customers. But we were almost 2 weeks relying with almost no software. Okay. But the whole restore process, it took us almost 3 months.
3 months. Yeah. Stephanie, is this in line with what you're telling your executives in terms of what the various levels of impact can be?
Yeah. Even our insurance provider, and I don't know, Philip, if you guys had an insurance provider, but a lot of them are saying, start to brace yourself for 6 weeks to 6 months, not having, availability to technology, which seems unfathomable to most of us. Another piece that they brought up was, depending on, how far it's infiltrated, the insurance provider will want all of your gear, right? So they're going to take it out. So you need a whole restoration site that hopefully has not been infected. Backups, you were just saying that, Philip. Wonderful that your backups were, available and not encrypted. But that's what they're starting to see now, as people are, getting in, they're messing around with your primary site and your secondary site. So, for folks, that's, a piece of advice is to try to keep them as separated as possible and only turn them on to test, which that's another piece of the whole disaster recovery, cyber or not, is having another whole separate space dedicated to bringing you back up. Something else said that I know the team just with incident response has brought up, a couple of things is, having, for us, we are a Microsoft shop, so having a second tenant or another piece of software, we can all go from a personal device or something else into that space to see all of our SOPs and all that. I think we went to a webinar once and we were so scared. We printed everything, backed it up on USBs, put them in vaults multiple facilities, so there's a lot to take in there. So yeah, it's definitely in line, and it's, could be millions of dollars even for a medium impact.
Wow.
So we're preparing them. For those of you that don't know, Halifax is in Nova Scotia, we're in Canada, and a number of our health, I guess our health authorities, which are kind of provincial, they've been hit and they've been down, can be down for over a year for some of their software. So this is not, we're not making up numbers here. It's real stuff.
Yeah. There is a question on the audience. I would like to reply very fast, because they are asking if during the incident it looks like internal networks were down. Yes, it is correct. And the main reason is because usually we just focus on the servers on the ransomware incident, but the computers, the personal computers, can also be infected, and they were infected. Some of them that were powered on during the weekend, they also got hit with ransomware. So we tried to disconnect everything. We were as much isolated as we could. So even on the next room, they weren't connected to the IT.
Yeah, we are going to run out of time. This has been a great interaction, and I hope the audience is getting a lot out of this. Certainly using your slides, Philippe, to as Stephanie encouraged the audience to do, would be a great takeaway. I'd like to wrap up with, Ari, what are some good takeaways, maybe your advice to the audience as to the top one or two things to consider doing that in retrospect, from lessons learned, you would advise them to do. And certainly I'll give you the floor, so that you deal with many clients and have to assist them through their process of securing your automation systems. What's your advice to the audience?
Well, I got to tell you, listening to Stephanie and Felipe, I've got a bunch of questions, so I want to gloss over this. The cartoon diagram here is really, take it as a call to action. Take it as a model or framework to begin being curious about threat modeling, and think about in these environments what must always work and what must never happen. And don't be intimidated by the topic. I think sometimes, I said it before, inaction is the worst thing you can possibly do. There's no such thing as perfect security. The question, though, that's coming up, and Stephanie, forgive me, gold star for referencing Dungeons and Dragons in an OT security. I love it. But so the thing that's coming up for me, and Felipe, you disconnected, right? Operations continued. There was no risk to water quality, delivery, or safety of your employees. Those are a few things that come top of mind when I think about the operational environment. Was your ability to invoice customers? Was your ability to access data? Did you have any gaps there? In other words, Rob used 300 gallons on his lawn over that weekend, or for however long you had a blind spot around usage data. Was that compromised at all? Did it get into your ability to just bill customers? And I'm thinking of the U.S. Colonial Pipeline similarity there.
Well, yes, we couldn't bill the customers for at least one of the months. We had the
for 30 days.
Yes, we had the data, but we couldn't access to the data of the reading of the meter of the customers. So we had to postpone one of the invoice.
Okay, but it was just postponed. It wasn't just...
we didn't
have
lost.
No idea what happened for 30 days out there.
Yes.
Okay, so a delay, and that's a cost to the business.
Yes, exactly.
And Stephanie, at Halifax, do you model? It sounds, I love that you've got that iterative tabletop exercise and you continue to discover gaps and fill them in. Do you model similarly when you think about impact to the business? What if we lose that bridge between IT and OT? What if we lose data? Do you quantify that?
We don't, but you just gave me a great idea. I have all kinds of modelers that do all kinds of other things. Thanks for the idea.
Modelers are awesome, right? So it's $150 a day. Okay, and then the last question, I love to ask this question, business owners, those who are on the front lines, delivering the services that you do. You don't have to answer it, but, what is the cost of one facility being down for a day, for example? Do you have an idea of what that is? What's the cost of the business or the opportunity cost of the business? Can't deliver water, whatever the reason is. What does it cost you guys as a business?
Philippe, you might be in a good position to estimate that based on your experience. We may have lost.
Yeah, it definitely is not there. Well, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't have that number. Probably our administration have that number, but I cannot quantify how much would cost for the company, and even with the indirect costs of the images, of course, to be shut down for a day. Yeah. But I guess the reputational costs will be also very high and for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, modelers can have a good time. And forgive me, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it is a favorite question of mine.
Of course.
Things down. Can't do the bidding of the business. How much is that worth?
I think we have exhausted our time. I want to thank the audience for hanging there with us and appreciate the questions. I believe we have a way to answer those via chat and get those to you. Panel, you guys were great. Stephanie, thank you for your contribution. And Philippe, this was awesome. There'll probably be an encore performance required. So I'd like to turn this back over to the SWAN team to wrap us up.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Appreciate you moderating this, Mike, and to all our panelists and, of course, ABB for partnering with us.